UFC Fight Night Blanchfield versus Fiorot is this weekend. I'm going to give you a full card and prediction and breakdown of all 14 fights on this card, starting with the matchup of Angel Pacheco versus Caolan Loughran. Caolan Loughran is literally just a bantamweight Marvin Vettori at this point. I'm not too sure about either one of these fighters winning. I'm going to be completely honest. Angel Pacheco got a rough matchup coming into at least the Contender Series. I think he is just taking this one. I'm not sure. Is this one on short notice? I did not check before this. I didn't think Loughran had a fight, but this fight was just put together, I guess. They signed Angel Pacheco anyways, but Danny Silva's a pretty rough matchup to have. I think you saw him pretty recently. I think it was against, what's his name? How am I forgetting the name of the guy he just beat? Oh, my God. We'll find in a second. He fought like a week or two ago. Joshua Kilobau. He just beat him. He has really good head movement and is kind of pretty game in there. So for Angel Pacheco, a lot of his shots were just missing. I mean, he was just punching air at that point against a guy in Danny Silva who's pretty good. Caolan Loughran, I just don't know. Like, how good is Taylor Lapilus? Because I think he is good. I just don't know how good Angel Pacheco's takedown defense is. I think he's got the cardio. I think he's got the stand-up, especially against the Caolan Loughran. I don't think Loughran's stand-up is that great. And he's a pretty small dude as well, 5'6", going against 5'8", 68 inches of reach. Maybe Loughran can just mix in the takedowns with some of the stand-up, and that'll just be a little bit too much for Pacheco. But I'm just not sure at this point. Pacheco throws a lot of straight shots, and I can just see Loughran kind of just running into them. Not necessarily saying, like, he's just going to spam takedowns and that kind of thing. But I think he's going to try and track Pacheco down. And I think when he goes in for takedowns, he's going to get timed with some, like a right or left hand down the pipe. And maybe he'll catch Loughran or not. Again, this is just a big test of a fight. It's what it is. Again, like I did say, he is the bantamweight Marvin Vettori. He has a really good chin, can wrestle, but there's not too much there on the feet. I think 32 years of age for Angel Pacheco too. I think I'll go Caolan Loughran. I don't think he's going to get the KO. I think this one's going to go to a decision. He's got a little bit of power in his hands. I don't think he's going to KO Angel Pacheco. I know Danny Silva, for some reason, he's able to go to a bunch of decisions, even though his boxing looks pretty crisp, in my opinion. I think Caolan Loughran probably wins this one by decision. I think he just out-wrestles Angel Pacheco in this one. So I'm not going to stick with Angel Pacheco here. I don't think Caolan Loughran's that crazy of a prospect or anything like that. So we'll kind of see what it looks like. Minus 345 favorite. I think it's kind of crazy. Plus 270 underdog for Pacheco. I think might be a little bit interesting here. So I'm going to go with Loughran, but it is a lower level fight anyways. So plus 270, I think that's a little bit crazy for an underdog, but let's move on. Up the card, we have Andre Petroski versus Jacob Malkoun. I think I'm going to go with Andre Petroski. I know he just lost to Michel Pereira, but Michel Pereira is on a 2-fight win streak at middleweight right now, so it doesn't look too bad. He just actually smoked Mikel Alsajik, so I guess it's not that bad of a loss to have at this point, or at least from what we've seen so far. Jacob Malkoun, though, I don't think much of him. I feel like Andre Petroski, positionally on the ground, especially out of the place he trains at, Renzo Gracie Philly, Sean Brady. I mean, just talking grapplers in general, those kind of guys, and then you got Joe Piper training there as well, and Wells. Why do I even try to remember some of these names? I'm just not remembering anybody's names. I guess Ruzabayev trains there. That's actually interesting. I didn't know that. Jeremiah Wells, there you go. He trains there as well. So a lot of good grapplers there. I feel like Petroski has more of a finishing ability on the ground. Jacob Malkoun hasn't fought in a little bit. It's been 6 months. Lost to Cody Brundage by disqualification. Illegal back of the head shot, which is kind of rough to see because he honestly hadn't fought that much before then. I think it was like a year off from that Nick Maximov fight where I think Maximov went in there injured. And I thought Maximov was actually a pretty decent prospect coming in. And Petroski actually submitted Maximov when I don't even think Maximov was injured there as well. Gerald Mearshart, he made that fight pretty close, especially towards the end. It did look pretty good early on, but I think I'm going to go with Petroski. I think we've seen a little bit more of better grappling on the ground. I think if we're talking like submission ability, which I think this will probably go down to, I think Petroski definitely has a little bit of an edge. Malkoun is kind of strong. I do think Petroski, just the way he's built, he's kind of stocky, even though he's got like a decent size. Like, he's 6 foot. I know Malkoun's what, 5'9" here. He's 6 foot, but he's got like a smaller lower half of his body than like his upper half. So it's like when you're looking for the hips for a takedown, I think it's gonna be tough for Malkoun here. I know he's a little bit smaller, but I think even then Petroski still has the power on the feet to give them the edge here. So I'm gonna go with Petroski. His stand-up doesn't look horrible. Malkoun's stand-up doesn't look that great either. So I'm just going to go with Petroski here. 29-28 decision. I don't think he gets the finish. But we'll kind of see what Malkoun looks like. He's 28 years of age. Petroski's 32. So he's getting a little bit older. He came in, I think, tough 29. And lost to Brian Battle from what I remember. I'm pretty sure the UFC was actually trying to get Petroski to win the fight. Or win the show. But ended up not happening. But we'll see how this one goes. 29-28 decision. I think Petroski will win. Just get the better of the positions and land a little bit of the better shots on the feet. Up the card, we have Melissa Gatto versus Victoria Dudakova. I mean, what even is this fight? I'm gonna go with Gatto here. I think she's lost to Ariana Lipski by split decision, who's decent. Tracy Cortez, who looks really good right now, lost to her by decision 2 years ago. Victoria Dudakova, she's 25, looks good on the feet, decent enough ability on the ground. However, Jinyu Frey didn't look super impressive in that fight. Estela Nunes, who I think is pretty decent as well, she got injured, dislocated her elbow, I think, pretty early into that fight. So we didn't get to see enough there. She's 6-4 though. Am I thinking? Yeah, Estela Nunes, I think, has had some decent, or at least one decent finish that I can remember at least. Oh wait. Never mind. Ariana Carlosi, Sam Hughes. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Maybe I am thinking of someone else here. But she was at one championship, Los Angeles. I guess she has some decent wins there. But yeah, I'm going to go with Melissa Gatto. I think she's at a little bit of a higher level at this point. 28 years of age, 2-inch reach advantage. Victoria Dudakova, I think she's going to need to prove something in this fight. I don't think her last... or at least her last performance was crazy good against a lady in Jinyu Frey. She's 25, 5 months ago. We'll see if she improves. Again, Melissa Gatto's decent enough to, I think, beat her. This is a lower level women's MMA fight, at least till we've seen enough from Dudakova yet. Dudakova has some decent skills on the feet, but I don't know. I'm going to go Gatto. I'm going to stick with the favorite here. I'm not surprised if Dudakova wins it, though. Up the card, we have Ivo Aslan versus Anton Turkalj. I'm going to go with Ivo Aslan. Power. I think even has like a little bit of wrestling ability. Trains at Extreme Couture. It doesn't say here, but I see him on Strickland's like Instagram stories all the time. So I'm assuming. I think he trained over in Thailand a little bit to work on his stand-up, his Muay Thai a little bit more. And then I think he's been training. His main gym really is at Extreme Couture. So he's got a good gym around him, a good coach as well. Eric Nixick, I think, is a very good coach. Ivo, I'm pretty sure he's his main coach. I'm not too sure. Scratch that off. I'm not sure if Eric Nixick is his main coach, but Ivo Aslan, I think, is a pretty decent prospect. Definitely got to look out for. Light heavyweight as well. 27 years of age, almost 28. Still very young. Anton Turkalj, I don't think is that great. He lost to Tyson Pedro by KO in his last fight. Tyson Pedro hasn't looked that great, especially recently. Vitor Petrino went to a decision with him there. I think there's a couple moments where Petrino could have finished him, but Mark Smith allows every cage grab known to man and doesn't like take away points or anything like that. So it is a lot closer than it needed to be. Petrino kind of gassed out a little bit there towards the end of that fight, but he kind of got away with making it to a decision. We'll say that way. So I'm surprised he didn't get KO'd by Petrino and then lost to Jilton Almeida. I think he took that one on short notice up a division or something like that. But I'm gonna go Ivo Aslan. A lot better fighter, a lot more power on the feet. I'm going to go with Aslan by KO in the first round, late first, maybe early second. I'm going Aslan, though. A lot of power, good prospect, can take it to the ground if he wants to. I'm going to go Aslan by KO in the first. Up the card, we have Connor Matthews versus Dennis Buzukja. I think I'm going to go Connor Matthews. I'm pretty sure this was a while ago. I think Connor Matthews was supposed to fight Francis Marshall on the Contender Series in 2022. And I want to say I chose Connor Matthews to beat Francis Marshall, but I think I'm not too sure. I didn't check the video that I made on that one, but I think I might have said Connor Matthews was going to win. But he's actually a pretty decent fighter. He looked good against Jair Farias, I think is how you say his name. Had some decent technique there. He's 31, almost 32. Fights with the New England Cartel, who you know, Calvin Kattar, Rob Font, really good boxing there. Dennis Buzukja coming from Longo and Weidman, so you know he probably has a decent grappling base, but he's a little bit more known for his stuff on the feet. However, in his last fight, he got KO'd pretty early against Jamall Emmers. Didn't look too great there. Sean Woodson, pretty tough matchup to have in general, so you can't really get on him too much. I think he took that fight on short notice. I think that's how he got in. But I believe I did have at least like 1 or 2 Contender Series fights. It's actually, oh yeah, 2. So he beat Kalo Romero and then lost to Melsik Bagdasaryan. There's a lot of hype. I think he garnered like a little bit of a fan base coming into that short notice fight in the UFC, but getting KO'd pretty early against Jamall Emmers is not something you kind of want to see. I think Connor Matthews can kind of do the same if he wants to. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up KOing Dennis Buzukja, like a TKO in the 2nd or 3rd round. I don't think he's Emmers, but I do think he has the skill on the feet to definitely beat up Dennis Buzukja in this fight and definitely at least get a TKO win in the 2nd or 3rd round here. So I'm going to go Connor Matthews, TKO against Dennis Buzukja. Buzukja's decent. I will say I just think I like what I've seen from Connor Matthews. I just think he's a lot better boxing on the feet as well. So I'm going Connor Matthews by 2nd or 3rd round TKO. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to a decision. Of the card, we have Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. I'll just say this. The last thing that we've seen from Herbert Burns was him, what was it, like 2 minutes of like very good grappling, him giving up in the fight, crying and being carried out by Gilbert Burns is exactly what happened in his last fight 1 year and 8 months ago against Bill Algeo. Julio Arce, decent fighter. He's going to beat up Herbert Burns if he can survive like a minute and a half or even like the first half of this first round. He's going to beat Herbert Burns. I don't think much of Herbert Burns. He's 36 years of age as well. He gave up so easily in that last fight. I know it was a Giga Chat and Bill Algeo, but he just gave up so easily. Doesn't have that great of a chin either. I think Julio Arce by finish in the 1st or 2nd round, probably TKO. I'm going to be honest. He's probably going to catch Herbert Burns and just beat him up on the ground. But if Herbert Burns can't get a submission early on in this fight, he's going to get deterred, give up, and then get TKO'd. So, or maybe just hold a guard on the ground and not try to get up, just maybe pat at the legs a little bit until the ref forces him and then he gets dropped or something like that. I don't know. 2nd round TKO, for late 1st or 2nd round TKO, I'll say for Julio Arce. Julio Arce hasn't fought in a while either. I think he was supposed to fight Cody Garbrandt. Did Cody Garbrandt cancel out of that one? I'm not too sure. No, Arce got injured. So he's been trying to fight a little bit. It's been a year since that fight was supposed to be scheduled with Cody Garbrandt. But didn't end up happening. So he gets Herbert Burns, a lot easier of a fight. He beats Herbert Burns, late 1st, 2nd round TKO. The card we have Virna Jandiroba versus Lupita Godinez. I think I'm going to go Lupita Godinez. I think she can keep this fight on the feet, and I do think her striking's a lot better than Virna Jandiroba. Like you saw, like it seems like even Amanda Ribas, Mackenzie Dern, like if you're able to not interact on the ground with Jandiroba where she's being the aggressor, where she's the one taking you down, and you keep it on the feet, it's just a very rough matchup for her. I mean, she lost to Mackenzie Dern on the feet 3 years ago. I know it was 3 years ago, but Mackenzie Dern hasn't looked that great since then, especially on the feet. I mean, she looked good against Angela Hill for a couple rounds, especially on the feet, and people thought the world after that, but then she's lost to Andrade and Lemos right after that, two actual decent strikers. So Lupita Godinez, a wrestler, very strong as well. I think if she keeps this one on the feet, which I think will happen, I don't think Virna Jandiroba is going to be able to take her down and like take her back or anything like that. Keeps on the feet. She has the power. She has a little bit of the technique. She's definitely looking a lot better on the feet. 30 years of age. Virna Jandiroba is 35. Lupi will be at like a 3-inch reach disadvantage here, but I think again it stays on the feet. She's going to be a lot more technical than Jandiroba. Jandiroba's just not that good on the feet. And I think she wins this one by decision. I don't think she's going to KO Jandiroba or anything like that. But 77% picked for Godinez in this fight. I think that's probably about correct. Minus 200, I think, is probably around the right spot there. I just don't see Virna getting her to the ground in any way unless Luque gets her down. And I still think Lupe's good enough on the ground to kind of avoid some of the danger from Virna. So I think this fight does stay on the feet. I just think Lupe's just a lot better on the feet. Up the card, we have Nate Landwehr versus Jamall Emmers. I think this one might pain me to say, but I think I'm probably going to go with Jamall Emmers. I like Nate to train. He's a very entertaining fighter. This is going to be in front of a crowd as well, so that's good for him. A prelim headliner as well. I did see on this card that he was supposed to open up the early prelims. I'm glad that's not exactly happening here. I'm glad he's main eventing the prelims here, so he's going to get a nice little crowd. But Jamall Emmers, very long fighter, and I just don't like, especially early on from Nate Landwehr, I don't like how he fights early on. It just seems like he's too easy to catch at certain points. He could wrestle Jamall Emmers here. I mean, we saw Pat Sabatini get a heel hook on Jamall Emmers, but Pat Sabatini's really good on the ground. He just doesn't have a chin, so maybe that says something about Jamall Emmers or something like that. I don't know, but I think Nate Landwehr really starts going into the later rounds. I think it just seems like in the first rounds it just either gets super competitive or he's losing. But in the second and third rounds, the train doesn't stop for nobody except for Dan Ige, which he took a lot of damage from. He did have moments, but he was just getting dropped. That was 9 months ago, so he's probably a little bit more fresh. He got his health a little bit back. He did take a lot of damage, so the time off is probably nice for him. 35 years of age, though. 34 for Jamall Emmers, so they're both kind of a little bit older. But I think Jamall Emmers can kind of maybe get this one. But maybe he can get, I don't even know. Is Jamall Emmers going to finish Nate Landwehr early in this fight in the first round? I'm not sure. I can see this one being like a 29-28 decision with Nate Landwehr taking the last round very clearly. It just being a war. Like in the last round, just making it super sloppy. But Jamall Emmers, very lengthy dude. I think his timing is pretty good as well. He beat Dennis Buzukja very early and knocked him down immediately and got the finish. He could probably do the same thing to Nate Landwehr. I'm going to be completely honest here. I think Nate Landwehr is very chinny, especially early on in his fights. It's just that's the window to finish him. It just seems like once he gets knocked down, he just gets refreshed and is like a new dude, and he just goes on a roll right after that. So if this goes in the round 2 or 3 and he takes a lot of damage in the first round, maybe a live bet might be something to look at for Nate Landwehr here. It is in a crowd as well, so he's going to be fueling off of that, but the odds are probably about right here. I think I'm going to go with Jamall Emmers. If he doesn't get the TKO in the first round, I think he gets I won't say majority decision. I think he gets a 29-28 decision. Pretty clear. And with Nate Landwehr having the better moments in the third round. So I'm going to go with Jamall Emmers. I won't say by finish, but I do think he gets a decision. It's just so hard, especially with Nate Landwehr. Especially if it gets past the first half of this fight, you never know with Nate Landwehr. So I'm just gonna go with Jamall Emmers here. I am gonna be rooting for Nate Landwehr, but I can't go out on a limb here. So up the card, we have Chidi and Njokuani versus Rhys McKee. I'm gonna go with Chidi and Njokuani here. Rhys McKee. This is at 170. I think Chidi's moving down here. I don't like how open Rhys McKee seems. He seems a little bit slower. His chin seems to be out a little bit more. And I think with the power Chidi and Njokuani going down a division is not going to be great for Rhys McKee here. And I can see him catching Rhys McKee and potentially getting the KO. Chidi and Njokuani lost to Mikhail Olszewski in his last fight by ground and pound. Albert Duraya he got pretty much out-wrestled. Didn't really go for it in the moments he really needed to, and then got KO'd by Gregor Rodriguez. Had a really good moment, especially early on in that fight. But Rhys McKee, he's going to make it super technical. Maybe he's going to try and wrestle Chidi and Njokuani. That's how guys are finishing Chidi. He's 35 years of age, so he's definitely getting older. 28 for Rhys McKee here. Very close odds, very interesting. I mean, Rhys McKee can definitely win this one. It just kind of just depends on what Chidi looks like. I just think Chidi, especially with the power, going down to welterweight, I think even with Reese McKee just being what seems like his chin is like tucked, but it also seems pretty out as well. I don't know if it's just his frame. He has 78 inches of reach, which is actually pretty good, but we'll be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage here. I just think Chidi and Njokuani is just going to catch him with like a right hook and just put him down very badly and win by TKO in the first round here. So I think Chidi, the power is just going to be a little bit too much for Reese McKee, who I do question his defense on the feet a little bit more. So I'm going to go Chidi, late first, early second round TKO. Up the card, we have Bill Algeo versus Kyle Nelson. I'm going to go with Bill Algeo. I like this fight for Bill Algeo. I like his stance, especially against a guy like Kyle Nelson, who I think where Bill Algeo is just going to be... Bill Algeo has kind of like an open stance. Like he's a very wide stance. It's pretty interesting, actually. I just don't think Kyle Nelson is going to be able to chop the legs down or do like a basic like jab technique on Bill Algeo. Like just do the basic stuff that we see Kyle Nelson do. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Bill Algeo, especially with his style. I think it's just very open. Bill Algeo is going to end up checking leg kicks. Is going to go for leg kicks of his own. He is a little bit slower, but I do think that he's going to be able to catch Kyle Nelson at certain moments and at least just outpoint him in this fight. Kyle Nelson, again, just kind of just basic on the feet. Not too much special to see there. I am going to go with Bill Algeo by decision. Probably 30-27. I don't mind maybe Kyle Nelson kind of eking out around technically with like the stats or just landing a couple more punches. In one of the rounds and it being like 29-28 and like 30-27 on some of the scorecards. But I do think Bill Algeo is super underrated. He's actually one of my favorite fighters to watch, weirdly enough. I don't know how many people share that, but I do think he's pretty underrated. He has some really good wins on his record. Joe Anderson Brito win over him is actually really good. It has actually aged pretty well. He lost to Brendan Loughran on the Contender Series. It's weird that he's actually in the UFC now, but... and not Brendan Loughran, who lost to... did he even fight someone after that PFL fight? Yeah, he lost to Jesus Pinedo and hasn't fought since. Well, it's been a while, but I just think Bill Algeo, very good fighter. Lost to Andre Fili in a pretty close fight as well, and that's his only recent loss. Lost to Ricardo Ramos in, 2021, but I think Bill Algeo, with his stance, is just going to be a little bit too much for Kyle Nelson. Going to check the leg kicks. It's just going to land more shots at him. 30-27 decision. That's what he got. Up the card, we had Nursultan Ruzabayev versus Cedriques Dumas. I believe in Ruzabayev's last fight, I took Bruno Ferreira, and he ended up KOing him. He just looked a lot faster, a lot bigger than Bruno Ferreira. And Cedriques Dumas, I just don't think he's that great. I'm going to be honest. Ruzabayev can grapple. The one thing that kind of threw me off on Ruzabayev when he came in, I think it was a short notice fight, maybe not, maybe just coming into the UFC as a signed fighter, but his opponents were kind of rough leading into that first UFC fight. So I didn't know. I mean, it's one thing to have the skills like you can see on tape, and it's one thing to do it against very crappy fighters. He was doing it against very crappy fighters, and he was a little bit more reckless from what I saw on his tape. But and we saw Ferreira KO Gregory Rodriguez, so I was a little bit questionable of that anyways. But Ruzabayev, 6'5" at middleweight against was Cedriques Dumas, who's 6'2", 79 inches of reach. I think I saw during the broadcast of the UFC, I'm pretty sure Ruzabayev is like 76 inches of reach. So Cedriques Dumas will have a 3-inch reach advantage here. I just think Ruzabayev is going to be able to out-wrestle Dumas in this fight, going to be able to out-grapple him. I think he's going to be a lot faster than Dumas on the feet as well, and is going to have a lot more pop in his shot. So I'm going to go Ruzabayev here by submission. I can just see him hanging there on the feet with Dumas, kind of cracking him and then going for a takedown, getting the submission in the first round. So I'm going to go first round finish submission for Ruzabayev here, maybe like a rear naked choke or something like that in this fight. So let's move on. Up the card, we have Bruno Silva versus Chris Weidman. I'm going to go Bruno Silva by KO. Chris Weidman did not look that great against Brad Tavares. That leg is absolutely done. Brad Tavares just can't help but not finish fighters at this point in his career, or at least, I mean, at some points he was able to get a couple finishes, but it just seems like that instinct isn't really there for him. So Bruno Silva, though, has a lot of power in his hands, and I think he's just maybe after a couple leg kicks or even just a few, Chris Weidman's just going to be hobbling around the entire fight. And I think the power Bruno Silva is very dangerous for Chris Weidman. I think this is kind of Dana's and the brass's way of saying, like, if you don't want to retire, because we're not going to force you. You came off of that brutal check the leg kick from Uriah Hall. We're not gonna force you into retirement, but we're gonna give you Bruno Silva, who's a lot of power in his hands, and can beat a 39-year-old Chris Weidman pretty badly, who's almost 40. So Chris Weidman will have a 4-inch reach advantage here. I just don't think he's gonna be able to out-wrestle Bruno Silva for 3 whole rounds. I don't think he's gonna be able to outstrike Bruno Silva on the feet for 3 whole rounds. I think his leg's gonna get messed up, and I can see him getting TKO'd in the late first or second round of this fight. I don't know if he gets flatline KO'd. Maybe that'll kind of send the message to retire. But I'm going to go Bruno Silva, TKO late first, early second finish for Silva here. Up the card, we have Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley. I'm going to go Vicente Luque. The thing with Joaquin Buckley, or at least what I'll say for Luque, is a lot of the shots that kind of get him come down the middle. He does have a really tight guard, though, and I think a lot of shots from Joaquin Buckley is like some wild stuff, a lot of hooks. He's going to jump in and throw a couple of hooks or at least some wild kicks, and I think that's just going to get defended pretty easily against a guy like Vicente Luque, and I think Vicente Luque has a lot of power, and I think we'll probably see the return of isn't that what they call like a KO or Joaquin KO face or whatever they called it? What was the fights again where you got KO'd? It was Chris Curtis, he got KO'd, and then there was another one where he got head kicked against Alessio Di Chirico. Yeah, Kevin Holland's been trolling him too for getting KO'd, or it's like KO Buckley face or something like that. But Luque just has a lot of power. I think Joaquin Buckley, who fought Alex Morono, took him to a decision. Didn't look too crazy good there. I mean, Andre Fialho, which is kind of a sad fall off when you think about it. Fialho, I know Dana really liked Fialho. He talked about how much he liked him, but sad fall off there. But couldn't finish Morono. I know Morono's pretty solid, but from what I've seen, Joaquin Buckley just a little bit too wild. A lot of winging shots that I think Luque will defend. A lot of crazy kicks that Luque will defend. It just doesn't seem like it's a lot of basic stuff down the middle that will get Luque in this fight. So I think Luque's power is just going to be a little bit too much for Joaquin Buckley. And I think I can see him mixing in some takedowns as well. It's been, almost 2 years? I won't say 2 years. A year and a half since he got that brain bleed from Jeff Neal. Took some damage against RDA, but nothing crazy, and that was 7 months ago in a 5-round fight and got the win against RDA. So I think he can just beat up Joaquin Buckley. Maybe he gets the finish. I think if he does get the finish, it'll probably be in the second or third round. I think he can get the TKO, honestly. I can see Joaquin Buckley kind of just lunging in to throw some wild hooks on the outside and just Luque just going bah. And then Buckley just getting dropped and finished up on the ground by Luque. So I'm going to go Luque, or maybe even dropped and put into a Darce or something. I don't know. But I'm going to go Vicente Luque, second or third round TKO in this one. Probably have Erin Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot. I'm going to go with Erin Blanchfield here. I like what I saw from her in her last fight against Taila Santos. Taila Santos is very strong. We saw her performance against Valentina Shevchenko, where some people thought she won. I thought Valentina won it. It was due to, wasn't it like a head clash or something like that, where she got her eye, or it was like an accidental head clash where Taila Santos couldn't really see at that point. But Erin Blanchfield went out there in a very tough matchup against Taila Santos, who, say it, probably on roids. Sounds a little bit like a dude. I'm just going to say that. I don't know if I don't think, it's not a Brazilian thing. I think it just might just be the roids or something like that. Because you see some of the WNBA players start sounding like that too. So maybe she's taking some stuff. Taila Santos is very strong. Very good defensive wrestling as well. A lot of power on the feet as well. And she survived that against Taila Santos and ended up winning the fight. So I think that was a pretty impressive win for Erin Blanchfield, which was a really tough matchup for her. And Manon Fiorot is winning decisions. I mean, Rose Namajunas and Caitlin Chukagian, some good decisions to win there. Beat Jennifer Maia by decision. Beat Mayra Bueno Silva by decision. I mean, she's looked pretty good on the feet. I think she's one of the better prospects in this division. She's 34 now, which is kind of crazy. I didn't even think about that. I thought she was pretty young as well, but 34 compared to 24 for Erin Blanchfield here. Manon Fiorot's got decent take down the fence. I don't think the first takedown of Erin Blanchfield is going to bring her to the ground or anything like that, but we've seen Erin Blanchfield improve. The short notice fight from Jessica Andrade, she won by rear naked choke, but she landed some really good shots going into that choke. And we have seen, especially in the Taila Santos fight, I mean, her striking's not there yet, but we can tell she's improving quite a bit. She's only 24, basically 25, and she's improving quite a bit. So I like what I see from Blanchfield. I think she can mix in the takedowns, maybe pressure a little bit more, land some good shots on Fiorot. I think this is more like a 49-46 decision. If she does get the submission victory over Fiorot, I wouldn't mind that there, especially like a gas Fiorot who Erin Blanchfield's just going to continue to grapple. And we've seen Manon Fiorot, who's used to kind of like that distance game. She's a very long, where she at least fights long, where she throws a lot of kicks. It'd be interesting to see if Blanchfield can kind of make this a little bit more messy, lead in with some shots and then go for the takedown, push her up against the fence, make her work, and tire out Fiorot. And that's why I do think she's going to end up winning this fight over multiple rounds, is because I think after the first round where Fiorot's just going to land a little bit of the better shots from distance, I think Erin Blanchfield's wrestling is just going to take a hold of Fiorot and just slow her down a little bit more and make it a little bit easier to land takedowns at a certain point. And I think the second or third round, you'll see that takedown land from Blanchfield, and I think it'll just take over the fight at that point. It could potentially be a boring fight. Maybe Manon Fiorot, who tires out, makes a pretty big mistake, turns her back at some point after getting taken down or held up against the fence. I don't think this is going to be a fence fight where she just keeps her against the fence, but I like going for a takedown. Maybe gives up her back at some point, and when she's tired, just gives up her neck as well and just gets submitted. I could see that happening in like the third or fourth round, but I just end up, I think we're going to see like a 49-46 decision here for Erin Blanchfield. So I'm going to go Erin Blanchfield, a lot younger, 34 years of age for Manon Fiorot. That actually shocked me. But Erin Blanchfield will have a 2-inch reach advantage here. Going to be 3 inches smaller, so a lot bigger of a target to get those takedowns. She's a smaller fighter here. -200 favorite. I'm going with Erin Blanchfield here. So that's my predictions for this card. Let me know who you guys think will win in the main event. From what I've seen online, I think -115 for Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque is kind of a steal here. So I'm just saying betting wise, I'm going to put some money on Luque for sure, but this is definitely, you definitely got some names on this card. A lot better than last week's. It should be pretty entertaining. I'm not sure about the main event. We'll see how that one goes, but I'm going with Erin Blanchfield. Let me know who you guys have down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.